Live. Welcome, Crafton. The webinar is now live. And I believe this is automatically recording to the cloud.
Yes.
It's an appropriate metaphor for today because it is not sunny.
All right, are we in?
And
We are.
And Eric is able to have his video on. Is it just host and co-host?
that's apparently the way it's rolling.
Okay, we have 18 participants.
Awesome.
Okay, excellent. Well, as we get settled here, like to just welcome everybody. I'm sorry, we had a little bit of an issue with the screen sharing today, so we're still just trying to adjust our settings as we so that we're able to share everything with you that we need to. Bear with us for just a moment, and we'll get started shortly.
Hey, as we're getting started, I just want to let everyone know that you should have a feature. If you click on participants, you'll see the participants list ideally. Sometimes Zoom has a bit of a mind of its own. But you will see a list of participants, hopefully, as well as a little hand that you can wave. You can put your hand up. There's also the ability, or should be, the ability to ask questions via like a chat box that you click on. It says ask question or raise hand. Please note that the way that Zoom is now configured, someone on our end has to allow you to speak. So that is that's something that's new to us, and we're going to have to figure out. So give us an opportunity to figure that out. If we don't get you, we're not skipping you. We just don't know the technology. So everybody, give us just a minute and we'll get started.
We have a comment, no participant list.
No participant list. All right.
Does that mean you can't see the participants?
Just a second. All right, Elaine, are you able to see a hand raising button? All right. Well, we'll go with that. So currently there are 14 attendees here in Crafton, and our 5 panelists here on the Planning Commission. So I think we're just about ready to start. Give us half a second.
So just for everybody's benefit, Jim Shriver had answered that question. The participant list is really just for the panel for the webinar, and the public has access to the raise hand and Q&A. So if you would like to speak, please use either the raise hand so we can unmute you and you can speak, or type your question in the Q&A box.
All right, Lydia, we weren't ready.
Okay, well, yeah, I think we're ready to get started if the rest of you are. We'll just apologize to those who are on the line with us today that we don't all have our video enabled. That is the setting that has somehow been turned off. We've used it before and somehow it's not showing up now. So we're not going to all be able to have our videos on for you today. We apologize. We're not trying to hide from you.
Or maybe we are. Right.
We've finagled it so that we can at least share the screen that we need to share, and we apologize that the rest of us are not showing faces.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick off. So I'm going to pass it straight away to Rich. Rich, if you would maybe walk us through tonight's agenda and give a welcome.
Okay, again, welcome everybody. This is the third workshop we're having. Tonight's agenda is going to be first an introduction. We're going to introduce the Planning Commission as we have in the past and the workshop topic and state the purpose of why we're doing this. And then we'll do a brief overview of the important phases and concepts of this project. And then thirdly, the main topic of Linden Avenue in West Dubin. We'll go through the property information that we've been gathering and do a brief recap of the Linden Avenue property ownership and its use to date. The next thing is the school board participation. We'll do school district funding and the effect that the pension crisis impact it'll have. The development opportunity will review the steps, history, required prior to construction and gain a community feedback regarding these design elements. And we hope we have a lot of participation in that. And then lastly, we'll go over the next steps. We'll learn how to learn more, what workshops we want to get involved with, and then we'll do a Q&A. Go to the next screen. Now, the commissioners that make up this board, you see the picture in front of you. Lydia is our chairperson. Myself, Rich Kramer, I'm the secretary. I've been here for a while. I've been involved in a number of committees and commissions. Kristen Capitello, she's been on the committee for a little more than a year now. We used her for her depth and knowledge of planning that she has. Colton is new to our committee this year. Colton's been a long time community member, a lifelong community member here. And then Eric Velchev, he's been involved in council, school board, and now with us here on the commission. Next screen.
Welcome, everybody. Colton?
Yes, so basically the purpose of tonight and the goals of the workshop are going to be, the goal number one is going to be to provide some context and history of the proposed development to the community. And the other goal that we have for tonight is to gather some feedback from the community about design and what the property could be used for and what the intent of the use of the property.
Okay, so we're going to go over some concepts that are going to be covered in this presentation, just so everybody's clear on what they mean. Zoning districts show how a community is divided into different uses, such as residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, for instance. And the properties that we'll be discussing tonight with this red arrow are zoned R2, which is the single and multifamily residential category. The authorized uses within R2 include single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, public library, no-impact home-based businesses. Conditional uses within R2 include churches, garden apartments or townhouses, non-commercial recreation, et cetera, schools, et cetera. And the concept to understand with zoning is the property owner's use of the property and structures has to be consistent with what's permissible in that zoning district. So if a proposed structure or development is not within that category already, the property owner or developer needs to apply for a zoning variance. Okay, we can move on. Another concept we'll be talking through tonight is deals with traffic, a highway occupancy permit. That's a permit issued to those who desire access, such as a driveway, to the state roadway. Steuben Street is State Route 60, so any access points that are proposed onto that route would require a permit through the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. These permits require traffic impact study scoping meetings and may require traffic studies and may require improvements to intersections, for instance, if the impact to the roadway is deemed above a certain threshold. And one thing that's important to note too is the municipality, so the Borough of Crafton in this case, would have say and be able to make comments based on what the findings of any traffic impact studies would be. So there's definitely the ability for the borough and the public to comment on those types of traffic impacts if there were to be any.
And before we move on, can you elaborate a little bit more about the highway occupancy permit process? Do they look at pedestrian traffic as a form of traffic? Or are we bicycles? Is this just the automobile? Can maybe you or maybe Kirsten talk about what that means?
If it's already, go ahead.
So they generally only think about cars. PennDOT does deal with other things as well, but that's their primary concern. So they are usually only really looking at the traffic impact. They will look at multimodal impact if it's requested by the community.
Important note. So in terms of pedestrian crossing, bicycle access, that sort of thing, that would be, again, incumbent upon us and council to really be making sure that that's heard within the study, but it would be within the domain of the issuance of the highway occupancy permit. That's where that falls in terms of when that is looked at and how it's looked at, correct?
Yes.
Awesome, thanks.
Eric, do you want to describe this one?
Would help if I'm off mute. So the intergovernmental cooperation agreement is, how municipalities work with each other. Pennsylvania has 504 maybe school districts, and I don't know how many, countless municipalities altogether. But when the time comes for, say, for example, Ingram or Crafton to work together on an initiative, we have to ask our councils to approve intergovernmental cooperation, and that now can be done not as an ordinance, but actually by resolution. But here, in terms of the context of this evening, the cooperative agreement that would have to be entered into would be between the Borough Council and the Carlinton School District. And the Carlinton School District has already moved forward on that and has presented it to council. And that's where we are today, is collecting feedback as to how that process might unfold. The reverter clause is something that we're going to cover tonight. Essentially, the frontage of the property in question. We can go back to the map. If anyone has questions, raise your hand. But we refer to it as where the mini golf is. It's a little larger than that. But that is owned by the Borough of Crafton for municipal purposes. It's not Crafton's to sell, air quotes maybe around the word sell. So Crafton can't sell it, but Crafton has it to use for municipal purposes. What that means is, in order for any sort of development to happen that would involve the sale of it, Crafton, municipality of Crafton, the council would have to revert their title, their ownership back to who gave it to them in the first place, which is a school district. So that reverter clause you hear over and over and over again. That's what it means. Hopefully we can unpack a little bit more as we get into things.
So let's just pause here and open it up. Are there any questions on those key concepts before we move forward?
All right.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over some property information, give a little history about the subject property that we're talking about tonight. So you'll see here on the screen the parcel viewer map of the properties. There's some labels here. The Crafton Borough piece is outlined in red, and the Carlinton piece is behind it, labeled Carlinton. Parcel 69G25 is the Carlinton piece. 69G15 is currently controlled by Crafton Borough. This whole property was owned originally by the school district. Both parcels. The district acquired 5 parcels in the 1920s and combined it into one large lot. For many years, the lot was used as Crafton High School football stadium. In 1999, the district carved off this front piece that's outlined in red, which contains currently the mini golf and a parking lot, and sold it to the borough for $1. The sale agreement included a reverter clause, which allows the district to reclaim ownership or the borough to return the property to the district. The borough may not sell the property, which goes back to what Eric was describing earlier. The district-controlled rear portion contains a baseball field enclosed by a fence, and the borough-controlled front portion contains mini golf, community signboard, and parking. Both parcels are currently zoned R2, which is something I mentioned earlier as well.
Before we jump forward, I know I was confused by this, and many of you that have not had the opportunity to see this before. The section that says Ingram Borough, that's a part of the Carlinton property that falls within the Ingram Borough. It's not actually borough property, if you will. I think it's just an important, because it's on the screen. It's like, wait a minute, they own it too. No, it's just that portion is not inside of Crafton. That's inside of the Ingram Borough.
Thanks, Eric. So wanted to go over and recap events over the last few years. The district has declared the property as underutilized, and recently it had been being used by varsity baseball, soccer, plus Little Cougars football. Alternative fields have been identified for all the sports, but long-term plans would be finalized if the development moves forward. The mini golf course is currently used by the community, and there is an opportunity to relocate this course as part of the development project. So one of the questions tonight for the community is whether that would even be desirable. The district has accepted a sale offer from a developer for $3.5 million, contingent upon reversion of the front parcel, a signed intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the borough, and a zoning variance. The district has declared that any money from the sale would be invested in capital projects for the district. And this would go and help pay for a backlog of capital improvements needed due to the coupled effect of increased pension fund obligations imposed by the state and Act 1's limitation on tax increases. We're going to go over that a little bit more in a little bit more detail.
Crafton Borough question.
Sure.
If you saw this question, there's a question about the section that that is a part of Ingram. Is that section under Ingram zoning? It would be under Ingram zoning.
Great question. It would appear that it would be, because Crafton does not control the zoning for that portion.
Yes, if anybody were to make changes on that parcel or develop that parcel, including the portion that falls within Ingram, they would have to pursue zoning changes. If they intend to change the zoning, they would have to pursue zoning variances with both Crafton and Ingram.
Thanks for the question. So just as far as recapping, Crafton Borough Council has discussed this project at several public meetings, but never voted on the motion to sign the intergovernmental agreement with the school district. Those public meetings were well attended by the community, and there were significant comments in opposition of the development at the time. And one other thing to note is that the developer has provided assurances that the existing get-go that's currently in Ingram, associated with the Crafton Ingram Shopping Center, is going to be decommissioned if this property moves forward, if this development were to move forward with the get-go. They would not keep two get-goes right adjacent to one another. And that process has to go through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Any sites that were previously gas stations need to be remediated properly and permitted so that they're able to be used for other uses again afterwards. So that's the kind of the process that it would go through if this proposed development were to move forward.
All right. So where are we? You know, I think there's two salient points here in terms of this development, and I just want to pause and say this is meant to be an informational portion of the session where we're looking to collect your feedback as a community. But we did want to make sure we positioned what facts we were able to gather and put it in a format so that you can digest it, internalize it, and give some feedback, some context as to what you might be thinking. So where we are today, Carleton as a school district they have the old Crafton high school football ball field, right? The old ball field, they can sell that. The reality is that front portion, Crafton Borough, is very desirable from a development standpoint, increases the value significantly. So Crafton controls but can't sell that front portion. So if it's in the best interest of the community, and the school district has made a logical and a good summary of why it would be beneficial for them to sell it. Crafton is now looking for input from the community as a planning commission as to, do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your vision? So there has been no plan in terms of an agenda to get this passed, but this is really about presenting this sort of information. So to contextualize, what some of this means. Carleton, and I think anyone who chooses to attend a school board meeting, I would encourage it, especially if you have kids in the school, but even not. Carleton is burdened, like many districts, many of our 514 districts in this great state, with an undue stress around pension. There is a pension crisis going on. We can go into this some other time, but it involves phrases like PSERS and rates that were really low in the past, and this is for all districts in the state that are really high as we move forward. So being able to tackle this in any kitchen table finances, let alone a big school district, hard to do. So the reality is currently the appraised value of the combined property is under $300,000. Rezone it, combine those properties for real, and it's worth about $3.5, a little under $4 million. Today, there's no taxes that are being generated from this property. It's flat property, pre-COVID, 13,000 vehicles apparently drove up and down Steuben Street every day. We spent a lot of time talking on the Planning Commission about Thrive and the community's strategic vision and strategic plan. And one of the big anchors of that plan is economic development. A nice flat parcel of land fits into what the constituents called for in creating Thrive. So we wanted to really, pull the through line of this and make sure that we understand that if this were to sell, we would never have it again for the school district. We would never have it again for the borough because we can't afford these prices for real estate. But it would generate revenue, and it would generate revenue year over year as a taxable commercial property. So what does that mean? What would it pay for? Carlinton School District has made it very clear, and I think that this is an important and salient topic for anyone attending, watching, or speaking about this tomorrow. The school district is doing everything they can to manage the budget strain underneath the pension crisis, this PSERS nightmare that so many districts are living through. They've made it very clear that because of this, your sinking fund, your capital improvement fund, well, they're staying afloat. So right now, and Jim, you're welcome to weigh in. We used a number from last summer that was, kind of the hot list of capital improvements was $6 million, right? So this wouldn't solve all the problems in the world, but for the district, this would do a lot of good in terms of capital improvements. So to dismiss the myth, what we've been told and assured and told again and assured again is that this would not be used for salaries of personnel or other things, bubblegum. This would be used for capital improvements. So Crafton as a municipality, we have a grant that we just won for a master parks plan. There's a lot of thought around what could be done, but there is not a specific plan. There's not an agenda. There's nothing that is being done. No one has spent the money before they got the money. It's not a done deal by any stretch of the matter. So the proceeds of that sale is really a matter of what the borough gets in terms of feedback from forums like this, from people like you who have come out tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pop us over here to Kirsten.
Thanks, Eric. And before I discuss this slide, I'm going to address there are a few questions that have been raised here, and we may all have some answers for these. The first one is, will the Ingram get-go be raised after the environmental considerations are resolved so that we won't have an unused building as an eyesore? I've heard it will come down, but I am not the best person to answer that. Do any of you?
I know for sure with the remediation, all tanks are removed, all fueling stations are removed, and all soil is tested. As far as like the overhead structure, the roof and the pillars, that property is leased right now, so it kind of depends on what the property owner wants. If they were to want to keep that for some reason, I suppose they'd be able to. Get-go doesn't have full authority on what that property becomes later, but in a shopping center, I would think that the property owner would want that area to be useful in the future for a different business. So I would think that it would all come down.
So I think what that is saying, and also what I've heard is that, and Eric, you can weigh into, is that we have been given reason to believe that it would come down, but we don't have any guarantee.
I'll just jump right into the dovetail on it. And this question comes from Alice Peskirik. If I said your name wrong, I apologize. The reality is we have been assured that the site would be remediated and brought back to a parking lot, but that is not in writing anywhere, and that's something that we'll collect as a outcome of this meeting.
The remediation piece is in the contract with get-go and the property owner lease.
Right, but what happens to the physical asset?
Right.
Somebody else come along and put a different.
I'm just saying the remediation piece is not up for.
Nope.
That's not unassured. That is for sure.
So the
happening
considerations, yes. The building, unknown, and great point. Thank you, Alice. The next question comes from Greg Wozniak. The year after year taxed incremental money for it. I know that the former borough manager had put together a spreadsheet making some guesses at it. Until this until this really has more broader public acceptance, I don't think that I could dare say that any of us can speculate as to what the incremental revenue would be on the taxable assets. But we can certainly make that, because we're not a decision-making body. We can make that in our recommendation, our findings, back to council, that they make that part of the community, the community findings report, which would include what the projected revenue would be of such a potential thing. Okay.
It's also worth adding that the plans that have been shared so far, as well as if anybody else were to propose in the alternate plan, again, even the plans that have been shared so far has looked at use of the greater lot beyond only a get-go. And I think all of that is very, very subjective at this point. It's all very conceptual and would be dependent on what exact uses went in. So the only thing that could be at all estimated at this point is only the tax revenue from the get-go, just the only specific use that's been advanced.
Yeah, and I'll jump to the Alice's question. I think that we handled that with Gregory Wozniak's question about the incremental tax revenue generation opportunities. There has been analysis. I don't know if it's current, and we will pass that along for something that would go into the public domain. We wouldn't be the keepers of that sort of information, but it's a great question, and it already has been certainly it's on the list. So what will Grafton get in this deal? Phyllis Barber asked at 7:29. Maybe Kirsten, you could handle this about the process for a traffic study. I know we alluded to it hasn't been done, but can you talk a little bit about the traffic, the highway occupancy and the traffic impact?
Yes, I think this is an excellent question. So thank you for asking it, Phyllis. There are multiple elements to this question, so I'll read the entire thing first. What will Crafton get in this deal? Has a traffic study been done? Impact to pedestrians and bicycles is important and a concern.
Traffic portion first. Start with the traffic portion first, then we'll get to the next. We'll take them one at a time because there's multiple questions that aren't related. Can you talk? Okay,
well, I think that these are all great questions, and I think that I will read them for everyone who's on the call, but ultimately this is a question that is why we're having this workshop. There are a lot of things that we want to discuss with all of you and hear your thoughts about what Crafton will get in this deal. What can Crafton get out of this deal? What does Crafton want from this deal? The first portion of this is, has a traffic study been done? And that's a very easy answer. No, a traffic study has not been done, but one would be a site-specific traffic study would be done between the developer and PennDOT if they were to get control of this property. So if a deal goes through, then the developer of that site will have to consult with PennDOT and look at the traffic impacts of whatever they're doing, whether it is a gas station or any other use. That will have to be done again after someone actually has control of the property. And since that deal has not yet happened, that traffic study has not been done. The second portion to the comment is impact to pedestrians and bicycles is important and a concern. We, as a planning commission, we absolutely agree with that. And that's one of the things that we want to talk to all of you about this evening. We have some ideas and we want to hear your ideas. And so we will be talking about what kinds of pedestrian and bicycle improvements, connections, and concerns do you want to have and do you want to share? There's also a question here, what are the impacts to stormwater management? That also is one of the things we'd like to talk to you all about and hear from you about in this evening's session, and we'll have a more interactive session after these initial informational slides. And the last section of this question from Phyllis is, aren't there other commercial lots in Crafton that are currently underdeveloped that could also be developed to generate taxes instead of taking green space? And that also, we are open to hearing all of your comments and thoughts during this workshop. There are other commercial lots in Crafton, and regardless of what happens here, developing and supporting and growing the commercial uses in Crafton is a priority for us as well. This is one of the largest in the areas, one of the largest areas that's available. And again, and I'll let any of the other planning commissioners jump in here too as well as the fact that we don't control. Crafton Borough does not own a large chunk of this. And so this is not entirely our decision. We can guide what we can, but the school district owns their property.
Kirsten, you make a great point. And there's two things. First of all, I want to apologize to Phyllis. I took the question in parts. I wasn't paying attention to the fact that not all of everyone on the line can see the whole question. So Kirsten, thanks for reading the whole question. But in addressing that final portion, what we're talking about tonight is the approach from the developer and the school district to do something with this parcel. We're certainly all live here, and we're certainly all aware of the fact that there could be underdeveloped land and opportunities in and around the town. But that's not what's being asked of this particular ask, right, between the two municipalities to enter into intergovernmental cooperation and potentially develop the land. So great question, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of that very quickly. And then lastly, the Carnegie Get-Go from Mary Luxbacher. Mary, thank you. Yes, the Carnegie Get-Go. She's asking, should give us an idea of the taxes that could be generated from this, because it's a Get-Go in a kind of a non-dissimilar town. I know that RJ in the tax table and the numbers that she kind of drafted last year, and I'm sure they're probably buried in one of the meeting notes from the December meeting, council meeting last year. That tax table is there and was using one of the data points, I should say, that she used was the Get-Go revenue, taxable revenue numbers. So we have one more question, and maybe Lydia or Colton has other revenues. This is from Alice Alice Glauser. Have other avenues been researched for community development to attract a younger, family orientated? I think we get the spirit of that question. Lydia, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
To date, the proposed development's been the only development that's been asked of this parcel. There's been community feedback at the prior borough meetings, and I know some other ideas have come to light as far as what the property could be used for or what the community would like to use it for. So we'll also take some of those comments during this session just to hear your thoughts. But I don't believe anything formal, any other proposed development formally has been reviewed or researched at all. The development has had some evolution. So at first it was a Get-Go and convenience store only, and it expanded to include on the back parcel some additional amenities, including a playground and some other commercial space, maybe a restaurant. They've been conceptualized. I know the developers also considering residential, so maybe townhomes in the back parcel there to abut the rest of the neighborhood. So there's a lot kind of on the table with this particular development, but as far as an altogether different plan, I don't believe anything else has been formalized.
Yeah, and the developer is going to do what the market will bear, is what it is at the end of the day. And they feel that the plan they presented makes sense for them, makes sense for the town, makes sense for the school district. And that's what we're here to try and unpack and pass some feedback along from you this evening. So want to turn things over to Kirsten at this point to talk a little bit about what happens if this were to go forward, and maybe what happens if this weren't to go forward. What do those options look like?
Right, so a little recap of all of the fairly heavy and lengthy information that we provided up to now. Tried to give a recap of what this all means. What does it mean if this proposed development moves forward? And this process would likely be similar for a different development, but this particular list is responding to the developer proposal that we have on the table right now. So it is specific. What happens if this proposed development goes forward? First, the school district and Crafton have to cooperate because it involves property that are owned by both entities. Second, Crafton has to revert the property back to the school district. And then a judge has to approve the sale. So those all kind of go together, but that's the first big chunk. And then alluding to that traffic study, the next thing that would happen is that PennDOT will have a say in the traffic. It is that front parcel that's controlled by Crafton Borough, fronts onto Steuben Street, which is a PennDOT road. And so any development there, particularly something with traffic flowing, coming in and out, they will have to resolve that with PennDOT and look at the traffic impact along that corridor. The next step would be that Crafton Borough and the community will still have input in the design. So everything that you all have seen so far is still schematic drawings, schematic designs that have been done prior to this developer even gaining control of the property. And so if a deal goes through and if they gain control of the property, at that point, they would begin more refined design discussions. And at that point, also Crafton Borough and the community would have the opportunity to continue giving input. The Planning Commission, we've already discussed, we would want to have another workshop like this at that point and try to work to make sure that the community's ideas and voices are being heard at that point. And then that final point is that the council, Crafton Borough Council, would also have to give a zoning variance because in this case, they are proposing a commercial use where it is zoned for residential. So we would have to give a zoning variance, and that gives us some very concrete say. They will have to convince the community, convince council that their proposal is agreeable to the community in order to get that variance. But it does give us some say. Do you want to go to the next? Okay.
Yeah, before
So what?
on that topic, I'm going to read you the question from Mary Luxbacher. Has a neighbor impact study been conducted? Have the homeowners in this area been alerted to all this directly? Wouldn't their property value take a major hit? And she's very concerned for those neighborhoods who would want to live, her rhetorical question, who would want to live next to a get-go?
Okay, and I will let anyone else, any of the other planning commissioners jump in and answer this also. My understanding is that the immediate homeowners have been approached and we're not concerned about this, but a neighborhood impact study has definitely not been done. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
No, I think it's a great point to make, and it's something that we can pass along to council to ask about. I'm not sure what goes into a neighborhood impact study, and if it sounds interesting, but I don't know if it's appropriate or not appropriate. The December meeting, I know there were some homeowners that were there, and I've heard various things, and that's what we're trying to unpack a little bit. And I think that especially those contiguous properties or those connected properties there would be very interested in sharing an opinion. And we'll have an opportunity here tonight. We have an opportunity on the community visioning website. There is a lot of opportunity to provide feedback. There's council meetings, and there's certainly multiple opportunities on the survey and the website for you to share your feedback as well. Kirsten? So
One,
Yeah,
one
thank you.
thing to,
Go
sorry,
ahead, Lydia.
one comment as far as would the properties take a major hit and who wants to live next to a get-go. Some of the design can affect how well screened the adjacent properties are from the get-go, so that you don't feel like, so that they wouldn't be feeling like a gas station is in their backyard. And it's just something to note that the developer has been very willing to hear comments on that and really do a good job with that type of thing. So while it doesn't take a get-go away from your property, it really shields it aesthetically.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about this slide. We have a few more comments that I'll address right after this, because I think they connect to this next slide here. What is the process if the proposed development does not move forward? And that's an important discussion to have, because this proposed development is not necessarily going to move forward. Again, this planning commission is not the decision-making body, but council is, and they have not made this decision yet. We still can be discussing what we would like to see if it does move forward, as well as what we would like to see if it doesn't. So what is the process if this does not move forward? We'll move into a more interactive discussion session shortly. And as the slide says, insert your thoughts here. We are going to discuss this. We would like to hear your thoughts from all of you. Again, it says on the side, the planning commission we are advisory. We are not a decision-making body. We are looking for all of your feedback, and we will be providing all of that to council as to how this community envisions this property now and in the future. And we that is what is our capability to do at this point. There's a comment here about a comment from how when Walgreens was built, the home across the street dropped $75K in property value. That's worth knowing about, thinking of. I don't know if we can check that, but that definitely the impact to the neighboring properties is a concern to think about. There's another comment about, has anyone talked to Sheets?
jump in and clarify. We're not confirming or denying. We don't have enough information to say if that's true, untrue, or otherwise. It's a great point that will pass along for the consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. There's another comment here from Rich. Has anyone talked to Sheets? We have not been talking to various different entities or businesses or developers. All we are presenting this evening is the fact that a developer, which includes GetGo, has come to Crafton and asked and proposed, presented this proposal.
Right. We'll
So
jump.
we're not seeking out.
A comment that she would like to make. The homeowners a year and a half ago were not aware of this this property, this issue, and the elevation of this property would constitute an eyesore. We will pass it along. The last question before we jump back comes from Janet King. Lydia, if you could take on who is the developer as we understand it.
It's Armstrong, and it's in conjunction with Echo Realty. And one of the comments earlier had a suggestion of a drive-in movie theater in the back parcel, so we can consider that idea as we ideate moving forward.
All right. So we're going to jump over to Colton now, and he's going to help us launch into the next section of the evening.
Yes, so now we are going to, we're going to move to the annotated portion of the thing tonight to go over a map so that we can go over some of these topics together. And Kirsten's going to share that, I believe.
That's right. So you're gonna have to give me a moment here.
You
You
get,
guys can address the next question while it switches over to my sharing.
so Colton, I think what was on the last screen, things that we're going to be talking about here with the proposed and the undeveloped and developed and anything that comes up in between. Just to recap, it was streetscaping, landscaping. Colton, what were the other ones?
Well, obviously the main corner is a big topic of discussion, how that would look, the building placement, and then future development in the greater area in general, meaning the back parcel.
We can see your screen.
So I am sharing my screen now. Hopefully everyone who's joined us tonight is able to see a screen. If you're calling in from a phone, the session is recorded, but just for your reference, if you're not able to see the screen, if you're not at a computer, we are looking at a map of the site. We will be looking at both the existing site and the proposed development. And then just annotating and taking down your ideas for what you like, don't like, what you would like to see. And there is, just to get us started, there is a comment. There's another question that's been posted that is a comment that I will immediately take down here. One of the things, this is from James Mangan, or Magin, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that correctly. There's a comment that says, one of the things that attracted me and my family to Crafton was the sense of community, not necessarily a gas station. I understand the immediate return provided by selling property, but wouldn't there be a long-term gain by investing in the space as a space for generic idea, community activities, especially geared towards families? So we're going to take that down. This is why we're having this workshop. We want to hear from the community and give you all an avenue to share what it is that you want to see. What I'm showing here on the screen roughly corresponds not to the property lines, but to the development proposal. So I'm going to just turn on. This is the existing aerial right here, the existing site, the ball field, parking lot, the mini golf in front, the entirety of both properties. And overlaid on top of that, this is the proposal that has been advanced to Crafton so far. This is the one proposal that we have seen from a developer, which is proposing a get-go right here in the front. And then additional future development that could happen on the rear portion of the site. And these black lines here, those don't correspond to the property lines as they currently are. They correspond to the phasing. So I do want to make that clear because I probably could have shown both on here. This is the phasing that the developer is proposing so far. This section in front is what they proposed for a gas station. And this section in the back is a future parcel that they're showing as commercial with a park space, but this is very undecided and uses here are still flexible. So with those in mind, we had shared a few possible things. We're open to anyone's comments or feedback, but we shared a couple of guidelines of the things that we're hoping to hear from all of you. We are hoping to hear from you on what kind of street character you want. What is the streetscape? What is the street? You know, are there access or character or connectivity issues that you're concerned about along either of these streets? We're also looking to hear about your thoughts about the use of any portions of this property, whether it's a certain portion of it or all of it. We're looking to hear your thoughts on landscaping. That may refer to some of the questions that were asked about having a gas station next to residential buildings. Are there concerns about how they would be separated, what this looks like, what this or any other development would look like as you drive along Steuben Street, as you drive through our community? What is it that you want to see? And then it also impacts things like building character, entrance and design. What do you think is suitable for this site? What do you think is suitable for this community?
So we do have one hand raised.
Mhm.
We can unmute Greg.
Sorry about that, Mr. Wozniak, you're clear to speak. You have your local mute on though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That I hit that by mistake. I went to hit the question and answers. I hit that by mistake.
That's all right.
So,
Welcome.
but I guess my comment was that we're talking now about the what we would like to see as far as what this plan is and what we like and don't like about this plan. What about the possibility of the council has already voted against this cooperation? Has there been equal thought by the commission to keep this a green space and for us to use it as a park for Crafton residents going forward? Has there been equal consideration given, like I said, to keep it a green space?
And I can speak to that. I want to, being on council last December, we did vote against passing the cooperation agreement. And I specifically was on that, saying that there just wasn't enough information as to whether or not there's a perceived benefit and a realized benefit in the community. One of the intents of my pushing for us to get to this evening is to really unpack what it was or what it is that's being proposed. The context, I don't think that personally, again, this is my opinion and not the council's, or certainly not the planning commission's. My opinion is, I don't think the school board really got a fair shake in terms of what their intent was. And I think that unpacking that a little bit is important. Now, to your point specifically, we've talked at length about a number of things here. We're not specifically going into kind of the comprehensive side of things as to where green space could be and how it could be improved within the borough, including this parcel. Whether or not this, and I think there's lots of people that have suggested, community centers and relocating even the library more centrally to the town, city center, if you will. There's lots of different ideas that are out there. But specifically what's been at task here is a meaningful decision to give it finality. And I think that's what you're asking for, is to put a final answer into the intergovernmental cooperation about the combined, the reverter clause and the combined sale of the properties. Does that help contextualize your question, Greg?
Yeah. I think the gist of my question really is, has due diligence been done and has much consideration been given to keeping it as green space as has been given it to developing it?
Could I just clarify, as I've shown here, if we were to keep it as green space, the only portion that we can even talk about keeping as green space is that portion that Crafton Borough owns. because the portion behind is Carleton District. And we can absolutely talk about what we would like to see there, but we have a lot less control over what happens with it.
What happens behind it? Right,
This back
Right.
parcel called Carleton
Right.
District Ownership
right.
is wholly owned by the district, and for all intents and purposes considered private land. They can sell it
Mhm.
tomorrow if they wanted to.
That is correct. I understand that, right? And I guess I'm only talking about the corner space right now, since we do have control as far as the use of that space. I mean, even Carleton District's ownership space is still considered residential second. So they would not be able to put a gas station on there. They could put the phase 2 on there, but not phase 1, the gas station. So maybe the green space that we have developed, even if it was next to the residential, wouldn't be that bad. I think the big pushback we're seeing is a gas station.
Yeah.
So, and I think that parcel that we keep as a green space is it's adjacent to our park already. So it can be an expansion of our park. And then the back space, which the developer has kind of gave us some conceptualized things. I doubt that anything's really been more than an artist rendition for them. Is I just think potentially the developer saying this is what could be, but the main focus is to get a gas station on that corner. And I think that main focus of a gas station on that corner is the main pushback, rightly so, by the citizens of Crafton.
Yeah, I think you summarized that quite nicely, and again, it's what developers are controlled by what the market will bear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been lots of wonderful. I've heard, oh, you could make it like the South Side with the high-rise condominiums. No one's paying $600,000 for a condominium on that property. I'm not a developer, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the potential, right? The boundaries of what's real or what are there. And that's where this comes down to is, can this be a lever to economic vibrancy? Because I'll go back to Thrive, and I'll say that, this aligns to what the community wanted in Thrive. And now we're faced with it, right? Now we're faced with it. And is that really, where we want it? And, I understand people will say there's a lot of underdeveloped property. I hear all that. And that's where we certainly don't want this decision to be made with an absence of community input. And I'm tonight, we're yet to hear, any wild support for the economic impact of where the baseball diamond is now. What if that were a family restaurant or whatever the coffee or whatever people have said? What does that matter if nobody's in support of it? And those are the connotations that we're looking for from you and from others tonight. So, Greg, thank you. We have a couple other hands up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
So then I just was going to say, then we as a borough, should we be looking into, giving an alternate plan for this? I mean, it sounds like we're up against, how are we going to develop this? Is it who gets their proposal pushed through quickest?
Well, yeah, or is it something that maybe you and I and everybody else here can push the council to put out a referendum that maybe we should raise some money and buy this whole thing, right?
Right.
Lots of people say that we should own it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure the school district would love to hear what that looks like, right? That's what this session is. We're not a decision-making body. We're looking for your feedback, and
Right.
duly, we appreciate it, Greg.
Yeah, and I appreciate it too. Thanks.
Gonna move on to Rich, if that's all right. Rich Gatens.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay, all right. I apologize if you hear screaming in the background. I'm at a playoff volleyball game. So anyway, I mean, a couple things I think important points to consider. I mean, I appreciate Jim and saying that we're only going to spend this on capital improvements, but the school district's obligations remain the school district's obligations. And if it comes down to it, they'll spend it on the obligations regardless, even if they're well-meaning to improve the school district in the present time. So we really have no control over that. The value of the property itself isn't $3.5 million for a green space.
Rich,
So it's less money, what most people.
on us, Rich. Can you hear us, Rich?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
You're much clearer now.
Okay, closer to a window. Okay, well, I basically pointed out that the obligations of the school district remain the obligations regardless of what their intentions are. They'll be using the funds as they need them. Number two is.
Let me just jump in. I believe they can earmark money and specifically use it for what they earmark. I kind of reject what you're saying there.
Well, if they're going to earmark the money for capital improvements that they don't have, then if they get additional money, it's just simply something else is going to be used to pay the other obligations. So it doesn't matter which kitty you put it in. They have to fulfill their obligations. So, I mean, there's no requirement.
They have a plan to fulfill their obligations, whether this development moves forward or not.
Right,
So
and plans changed based upon situations. A couple years ago, they had no plan to sell this property. They were using it for soccer games, soccer practice. Okay, so yes, plans change. That I believe it's their heartfelt plan that they will use it for capital improvement, but there's no obligation and there's no way Crafton can control their use of the money. Number two, this talk about the pension crisis. I represent injured teachers. I'm often involved with PCERS in calculating pensions. And the myth that this has happened overnight or this is something that isn't a self-inflicted wound, it's just not true. I mean, unfortunately, PCERS for a long period of time was considered to be super funded. So in essence, the state gave itself and the school districts a break from contributions. And this lasted at least 10 years. So districts who could have responsibly raised taxes used the money that they should have been contributing to the pension.
Rich, move back to the window, sir.
To fill gaps. Because the pension has lost money in this situation. And the piper has come to be paid. So I know a lot of people think this just happened or this was, it's not Jim Shriver's fault, it's not the Carlinton School Board's fault, but it is kind of the fault of the Carlinton School Board of the 90s and early 2000s. So, to say that they have this obligation and we didn't know it was coming, it's coming. And unfortunately it's here, but that doesn't mean Crafton has to suffer to keep the Carlinton School District afloat. We can never get this green space back. I know we don't own it and control it other than the zoning, but it's much better. It's much better for a community to have some athletic fields. We don't. We have an unused baseball field, an unused softball field, volleyball. Here I am at a volleyball game, no volleyball. I know there's talk of using the land down in the valley, but the issue is you can't get down in the valley. You have backbone, you have Ewing Road, and when it's not falling over the hill and closed for several years, it's repaired for a brief period of time. So I don't really see whether we have other access to green space. And this isn't ideally a situated green space, but it's what we have. And I think we really are short-sighted. And I just feel like this whole meeting is just geared towards, let's make the plan of what they're going to develop. I don't agree with that. I think the Planning Commission has has a greater obligation than simply to manage the proposed development.
That's great. Rich, I appreciate your feedback. And that's the kind of opinion, that's the thoughtfulness that we're looking for. I'm gonna move us on here. And we're going to be heading back to Kirsten. We have a few questions still there, but maybe Kirsten, you can walk us through what you've been busy working on the screen.
Sure. Yes, we do have a few people who have been typing in comments and questions, more of them comments. So I've been trying to annotate those on the map so we can all see. Rich has mentioned that there are drainage and flooding issues around the plaza. And that's a very apt comment. That's something that we're definitely concerned about. And we'd love to hear from the community as to what solutions you think would be appropriate. One of the things that's been discussed for this site is some stormwater management strategies and locations. Something, for example, like a retention basin is something that was proposed by the developer. But to go back to that previous comment, we are not here to push one thing or another. We are really here to enable you as the community to tell us what it is that matters to you. Insofar as we are showing the existing development plans, it's because they are on the table and we want to make sure that you have a chance to respond to them. But we are not here to promote any particular outcome. So yeah, that flooding has been, is an issue to consider. And it's one of the things that we on the Planning Commission have talked about in the past. We would like to see better stormwater retention integrated throughout the entire community. And this particular site has talked about a retention basin. One of the next comments is that the park space, which is on the current plan, which is on the currently proposed developer's plan. There's a park space that is at the rear of the parcel behind some proposed commercial and parking lot. And there's a comment that if that were to happen as presently described, it seems that the park space would really only be used by the tenants of the proposed apartments. So we've noted that down, and I will say that that's something that we've also discussed and that we agree upon as well, that part.
I'll dovetail on the comment that has been one of the discussions around maybe the recommendation is that is where the mini golf would be located. I'm gonna jump.
The other option for mini golf was on the at the Crafton Park adjacent to the pool slides.
Mm-hmm.
That would allow synergies with staffing associated with the pool.
Sure. So I'm going to jump back to Alice Persick question here, starting with you, Kirsten. She's asking about the screening the buildings is desirable and the controlling light pollution for adjacent homeowners is as a comment. And then it seems like there was a little bit more there around how in other areas kind of the commercial districts are screened so they're not really noticeable. I don't know that that's really on the table for us because that's really what the market, the developer would bear, and that's. Can you talk to what the landscape, I'll say barrier, and what it means when you say LED downlighting and that sort of thing for light pollution? Can you talk a little bit about that side of things and so what the perimeter would look like for the immediate neighbors?
Yeah, I think that these are, again, we're not trying to speak for the developer here or in advocacy for any particular plan. These are all really good concerns that we're happy to hear from you, and we'll continue to push them forward. There are concerns that we have also brought up. I'm going to switch to a plan view just so that we can discuss this a little bit more legibly. So again, I don't want to answer that question with the assumption that this is specifically what's going to happen, because that's not our intent, but this is the image that I have in front of me. So let's, if this were, or if something like this were to happen, one of the things that we want to hear from all of you is what kind of lighting do you want to see? One of the things that we've talked about are trying to promote lighting that directs downwards towards a pedestrian level that doesn't bleed a lot of light out into the surrounding neighborhood. So with this kind of lighting, the light is directed down towards the ground and is a suitable level of lumen that's a pedestrian scale and is not going to cause excessive light pollution for surrounding neighborhoods, not be glaring into the eyes of neighboring buildings. That's one of the things that we're asking for. But again, this is a community workshop. We really want to hear if there are things that you want to see. These are all on the table.
Yeah. Last question from Mr. Mangan was a statement. If there, I think you addressed this. If it were used described, it seems that the space would be only be used by tenants of the proposed apartment. So you can see here in this particular rendition, it's not residential. It would be a commercial-ish development. I don't know what the outbuildings would be for because nobody has made a deal, right? No one knows what it would be, but the theory behind this is that would be some sort of commercial property, and your imagination as to what commercial establishments might be interested there, whether they're kid friendly or coffee friendly, whether they're store friendly or something else, restaurants, etc. Those are all great questions, but we simply don't know. We're trying to kind of get the collective feedback there. Statement from Alice Glauser, park needs to be expanded in this area. The community must find resources to make this happen. And I think that we've heard that, Alice, I think we've heard that from yourself and from many others. We appreciate that direct opinion and that specific feedback. And then the last comes from, Mr. Mangan again. Carnegie is a great space for a skate park, tennis courts, and a deck hockey rink. Would something like that add value to our community as a whole rather than revenue of just one area? The answer is sure, it could. It could. But, again, what you described there are all non-taxable, no income bearing impacts. And so at some point, that's kind of what the school board is asking about, what the developer is asking for, is to convert this into year over year income for both municipalities raised by that taxable development.
I would add that we mentioned earlier that there was a request that we focus on keeping that the front parcel that is controlled by Crafton Borough as a green space. And the idea of a skate park, tennis courts, and hockey rink, those are all very nice ideas, but the quantity that's discussed in that comment is a lot larger than would fit on that front parcel. Right. So we can certainly advocate, we can certainly share that there's community interest in all of those things on this entire parcel. But again, we don't have control over that back parcel. So we have limited ability to control what it becomes.
Mm-hmm. And then Rich Sugan makes a comment, adult algebra, I believe is the exercise here. Mini golf equals dog park. So I'll post that out there. Thank you. And Megan Grabowski, for my residence on Emerson Avenue, there is 10 gas stations under 5 miles away. Anyone considering development that would benefit the community as a whole, not just the school district. Crafton already has commercial space, gas station, and playgrounds. The borough needs a development and business that will provide family economic stability to residents seeking employment. Get-Go does not offer wages, even to full-time employees, which will allow people to pay rent and live in this community. That's a terrific comment. And to the question, I'll go ahead and take that. I'm not sure that I specifically agree with it. not you. I'm saying the contrarian view of that statement that I've heard repeatedly, and I wish there were others that have said this would come out and say it, is today the get-go sheets, call it what you want. This convenience store has become the modern soda fountain, and it is a congregation point for in the non-COVID world for a generation of teenage and middle teen kids. So there is something to be said for that in terms of that level of desirability. It doesn't come at the expense of nothing, and that's why we're here for it. So we appreciate your feedback, Megan, and we're going to go on to Alice Persic.
Eric, I'm going to interrupt you because we have a number of people with their hands up, and we do appreciate all of the typed comments, and we're taking notes of all of these. We'll be recording all of the written notes as well, and we'll address them verbally if we can, but we do have people who have their hand up, and I think we want to allow people to talk.
Oh, there are 4 hands up. Yeah, absolutely. Coletta. Allow Coletta.
Mute myself. Hi. So yeah, this has been a really great forum, and so I'm Coletta Perry. I am both a resident and I am a single member of council, so I can put a little input about council, and we've had some questions about due diligence and that sort of thing. I need to make it clear that I am not speaking for council as a whole, but I will try and give some input. The thing that's important to first that I would like to underscore is that we understand that the school board, for whatever their needs are, and I don't think, you know, talking about pensions or whatever really has any bearing here, but that they are looking for to get the value out of this property. And then I think that's a legitimate thing. And I think that the council thinks so as well. One thing that we need to understand is that we do not own outright, and I think you probably mentioned this earlier because I wasn't able to join right away. We don't own outright that front part. It is only available to us as long as we are using it for borough purposes, which recreation would be one. Now, I've heard, I do know that one of the reasons that council has not moved forward with that intergovernmental agreement is that, given the feedback that we've gotten at 2 previous meetings with a lot of the same people who are here tonight, that there is a lot of pushback about the proposed development. And time again, the main value of that front piece of property is that is exactly where the get-go or the Sheets wants to be. They don't want to be further back. And that we do understand that the property is more valuable together, because the offer that the school board has is contingent on getting that front piece of property. So long term, I know that the council that sits right now is interested in taking a step back, listening to everybody's input, and figuring out a way to work with the school board to find a suitable solution for that benefits the community. And one of the things that I do want to point out, and I don't know if in one of your other presentations, whether we've talked about the fact that we have a grant for a Parks and Recreation study. And one of my personal opinions is that it would be very beneficial for the community to let that process move forward, so that we might see what might be possible. And one of the things is that since we have state funding for the study, what comes out of the study is often more qualified for grants as well. So bringing this whole property under, the borough purchasing it for Parks and Recreation is not dead on arrival. It'll take a little bit of time. And then there are other possibilities as we talk about residential or different kinds of development. We want to be conscious not only about revenue, and I think that's what everybody has said here, but is it a good fit for Crafton? And so I think that we are very interested in doing the work that you guys are doing here in planning and getting feedback to look for that balance of potential year-over-year revenue. And one of the things that I might point out is that, something such as residential, and no, we won't be having $600,000 condominiums here, but there are other options, really has the long-term potential to increase both the school boards and the local municipalities' property tax revenue, probably more significantly than what the school board would see year over year with the valuation on the property developed as it is. I'm just saying that these are all things that are under discussion. So my takeaway, sorry I've been so long-winded, is that the borough is listening, that we are willing to consider a broad range of possibilities. And I personally, as a council member, as long as I'm going to be on council, really want to put the fit for the community as my top priority in deciding what can happen. But I firmly believe that if we take our time and we work with the school board, that the school board can achieve their goals for revenue, and we as a community can achieve our goals for a good fit for this property. Thank you.
I'll jump in. Coletta, thank you. As always, we appreciate the input. I want to go directly to Phyllis. Phyllis, you had your hand up. You're unmuted.
Hey, hi, everybody. This is my first meeting, so I appreciate all the detail and background. And in terms of some of the things I've been listening to, I think what Coletta was just talking about, what I think of that as is sustainable development for Crafton. So not just looking at the short term, but the long term. And I think our development can be done in an environmentally sustainable way without the expensive economics and economic development. So I don't think one negates the other. And I think, thinking about what would go there, is there some, are there things that can be an attraction? I don't think a gas station is an attraction. People are going to go to get gas wherever it's the cheapest or wherever they're used to going. And, looking at this, the overview here with the, proposed development has been great, but what's been kind of standing out to me is, again, similar to the comment I made, is we have an underdeveloped shopping center right next to it. So, again, I appreciate the needs of the school district, but there has to be a way to balance that, and taking green space and putting in a gas station where there's actually a new one 5 miles up the road and there's an existing one in the shopping center just doesn't seem like a wise use of resources. And in terms of what is important for development, I like the ideas of the lighting that were used, that were mentioned, LED lighting. It would be at a foot candle level that's reasonable. Stormwater is a big issue, but I think we should be considering green infrastructure and not always the gray collection options. And then keeping walkability and pedestrian and bicycle safety is top. Thank you.
That was a great comment. And do you want to clarify? Because I think you had also been the person who mentioned the bike ped importance earlier. This does run along two different roads here on Linden Avenue and Steuben Street. Do you have any thoughts or preferences or ideas on what kind of bike pedestrian infrastructure or connections are desired?
I think I don't have a specific, but I know the city of Pittsburgh's been doing a lot of connectivity to bike routes. I know, you know, we're not very far from the West End, but do we have any routes to safely bike to the West End? So I guess a lot of my comments are in the greater development of Crafton. You know, and I know you're interested in this specific development, but I would say just that safe connectivity to get people downtown and through the West End. I think Crafton has a role in that. There's lanes, there's sharrows that are employed through bicycle development.
Yeah, although this workshop is focused on this site, we are having a number of different workshops, some of which we've already held. We will be continuing to have them. So even though we have a focus for each one, that doesn't mean that we're not open to hearing ideas that connect to other sites or areas too, because you know, we as a planning commission, and then of course council as whole and the community as whole, we have a lot of things that are changing and that we can continue to consider. As Coletta mentioned, we did just council did just secure funding for a Parks and Recreation master plan, and so talking about things like pedestrian connections is very relevant and worth hearing about.
And I'm gonna answer, click off Greg Wozniak, your question about what Coletta with Ms. Perry rightly said. That to which you're speaking to right now, Kirsten, is a Master Parks Plan study funding that was just received. I want to say is in the past week. Yet another grant on the roll of grants that our little town has been on. So was that $40,000 unmatched? Is that right? I think that was $40,000 unmatched. So that's quite a bit.
Master Parks Plan?
Yeah.
I recall 26,000, but I might be wrong.
Okay. A significant amount of money to put together a parks plan. So great questions, great feedback. Greg, I'll mark that question answered. And we're going to go directly to Mr. Rich Sushant. Allowed to talk and asked to unmute. Rich, you there? All right, we're going to go to Alice Peskarich. Allowed to talk and unmute yourself, please.
So first of all, Eric, bravo for trying to say my name 3 different ways, and you had it right in the beginning. Good for you. I get all sorts of things, and it is Peskarich, and it's also AJ. I'm most known as AJ, even though it comes up as Alice.
Thank you.
A couple things. First of all, I do appreciate what you guys are doing here, and I'm sorry I didn't make the other meetings. Second, thanks to Councilwoman Perry for sharing the perspective. It really is hard to talk about this in the confines of this with the unknowns about it and without looking at the overall plan. So I just want to acknowledge that. I think I'm feeling that on this end, and you guys are probably feeling that on your end. I had raised a couple of things about the comments that I made were in response to your question, Kirsten, what would you like it to look like? And my answer, Eric, which you shared, was I would like it to look like it was like you don't know it's there. And that may, you can't commit for a developer. That was the answer. But I'm just asking you to relay that it's more than just, if you're in Hilton Head or you're in a vacation spot, you're hard pressed to find where the Walmart is. The signs are low, you gotta look, they're tucked back in there. Now, I know these guys don't want to be tucked back in. That's important information for us to understand. But in any event, I'm pleased with the lighting, the fact that it would be downward, that it would be LED. Maybe there would even be some hour considerations for when it goes down. I don't know what hours they're interested in operating, but those are some things that are considerations.
They haven't committed yet.
Yeah. So one thing though that I would be cautious about jumping to an assumption, and that is that because the majority of the citizens don't want a gas station, equates to we're not willing to pay the price for economic development. So I would just be careful about that. I for one would be very excited if we had more restaurants to go to in our area. Now, again, COVID's not a great time to entice somebody to do a restaurant. I would love it. I mean, frankly, I shouldn't say love it, but you know, if we're going to go with a brand, a local brand, let's put an Eaton Park there where people can take their kids versus a gas station. And I have no idea what the numbers are. All I'm saying is it really is a gas station on our throughway that we don't think benefits us. It benefits commuters who are driving through our neighborhood and does not bring as much value to the community. I, for one, am all in favor of anything. And I love the longer term sustainable revenue generation. And I think it's fair to ask for a revenue projection analysis to see what this would get us. But I do appreciate how tough this is, and I'm excited about the other things that you're working on. And I think, you know, it's also part of the holistic part is thinking, okay, there is a parks grant going in and that could lead to some positive things. So, you know, perhaps the next one, this will be more fleshed out in total, and it'll be easier to comment more effectively on it. Thank you.
AJ, and I will say, I appreciate your comments and that important feedback. I will say that I'm reluctant to pull up the old projections that I have simply because they're just that. Last December is not this October.
Right.
I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I think that will be passed along. And again, you know, the expense of paying for the future. You know, the reality is the world is changing. The character and the makeup of Crafton is tearing a little bit this year, and not just COVID. There's a vision for what many want this town to become, and there's many who want it to maybe not change so fast.
Yeah.
So there's that disconnect that needs to be
Right. The other thing that I would offer to bring up, Eric, is just, I'm sorry, just one more point is that it was made, and I just feel like since I've been at most of the meetings to comment on this, the concern was not that kids are hanging out at the get-go, that's an opportunity. The concern has been raised previously, that's perhaps a bigger liability than it is an opportunity. And I just think that's, you know, again, worth balancing this tables on. I'm all for change, but reasonable change.
Another salient point. All right. I am going to turn things back. Kirsten, any comments about what you've been busy note taking on there?
Well, I've been trying to note take all of the different comments that I'm hearing from you, as well as some of the particularly more visual ones that we're hearing in some of the written comments. We're recording all of the comments we get as well, even the ones that are helpful in other ways. Some people have made comments, for example, about how riding a bike feels unsafe in the area. And needing things like numbers and wanting to see the revenue. We're taking down all of these comments, but I am trying to annotate more visually the things that we're talking about, especially in terms of uses and placement of things to help us all visualize what we're talking about. Hopefully it's not confusing to anyone. There are so many different ideas. I've started switching on different layers so that we can see them all a few at a time. There was one comment here. Actually, two that I'll point out. This one first is that a walking track around the parcel would be awesome. This is from Mary Luxbacher. Walking track around the parcel would be awesome. People literally walk around the parking lot looking for a safe route. And I've indicated that loosely, but this is where the visuals do come in handy, because I'm not sure if I've accurately shown what you meant by this, Mary. So if you would like to raise your hand or provide another comment to elaborate what kind of walking track you meant or where it would be or where it should connect to, please do feel free to elaborate what it is that your thoughts were there.
Okay, well, I'm Mary, and I'm the person who's always in the mini golf, and I do want to say we've had a fantastic summer for those of you that have come down. People actually, we've probably have gone close to 500 people this summer who have come through. A lot of people think it's not used, it is used. But the walking while I'm cleaning and doing things, there are people who literally come, ride their bike around the parking lot across the street, or walk nightly or daily around the parking lot because it's level. I think Green Tree has a walking track. And I was just adding, if you are like, when you were saying, things like deck hockey, I love all those ideas. I think those are, I really do feel if we could make this the centerpiece of our recreation. I know they want to move down by the creek, and I totally I know we have the CIT fields, improve upon that, but to take away that passive green space down there when you've seen eagles soaring overhead, I just really don't want a whole bunch of ball fields and things like that down there. Maybe a dock and things like that to launch your canoe or your kayak. But I see the center of town as the area as our showpiece. People walk constantly up and down Steuben Street. If you take the time, you will see them. Some of them are going to work. A lot of people go to Amazon, I'm guessing, in the warehouses down that way. That's a direct route. There are kids, there are families, there's older couples. People are constantly walking up and down those streets. And I was just saying about a walking track. I think especially older people sometimes, like myself, you feel a little bit safer on a more, groomed path. And that was what I meant by, how can we use those fields? Number one, open the gates so people can get in and even just walk those fields, things like that. But I think taking that area away, especially in this time, whenever people are flocking to our parks, it just hurts my soul whenever I think about that happening. I don't even care if you don't like the mini golf. It's okay. I'm okay with that. But I really, really, really feel people come to Crafton not for a get-go. That's not what, you can go anywhere for a get-go, but to really develop that area and make it our showpiece, I think could be just outstanding. So I'm all for buy it. Buy it from the store.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for clarifying. That was a really nice thought.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Feedback. I want to point out, and thank you, Kirsten, for pointing it out on the map there. Is what it is. It's a rendition. The plan that is there did include a walkable trail around the outside of the perimeter of that property, inside of the trees and behind the light perimeter. So that is one of the considerations. I personally felt was a pretty good thought to it if this is something that were to happen. So I'm going to turn us back over to now. Maybe Colton, maybe you can read through some of the comments that we have on the screen right now. Do you have access to the community comments?
I am not, I believe so. Let me see if I can pull it back up again. Give me a second. I had it up.
Well, Colton, while you pull that one up, I'll just call attention to one of the ones that was more visual that I did note down here. Someone had James Mangan. Again, excuse me if I've mispronounced that, but he made a comment about, can we court other businesses and create a hybrid version of this, such as Shenley Plaza? This would include revenue from taxes, job openings for teens, and park walking space for families. And so I've noted this one down because, and again, the person who made this comment, James, if you'd like to elaborate, please do feel free to. But I'm interpreting that as what we're looking for, or what we're suggesting here, would be a mix of some commercial, retail, business type uses and park space, a hybrid space that would have some of multiple elements, and be a central gathering place with some retail opportunities also. That's how I'm interpreting it. So that's what I've taken down.
Okay, so I do have this back up. It looks like there's a few other comments. It's Elaine Devlin said, just for clarification purposes, has any other developers have approached for development of this parcel of land? I don't believe that there have been any other developers. I believe that this was the only one on the table at this time. I don't know if anybody else can answer that for sure.
There was one proposal ahead of the current developer, and this current developer increased the purchase price.
I think
But
we
it was
can
for
also-
a similar use, a gas station with convenience store.
Yeah, to be clear, in terms of the role of Crafton and the municipality of Crafton, I believe the only intergovernmental cooperation agreement that's been asked to be reviewed at this point, I could be wrong from the Sheets proposal, but the only one that's certainly on the table now that's been asked is with regard to, forgive me, is it Echo? The Get Go is actually, it's not actually Get Go, it's a company.
Echo Realty and Armstrong Development.
That's right. Okay.
I'd also like to say Coletta had her hand up, and she may want to respond to that question also.
Answer that I can give. Let me get you unmuted. Oh, Mary Luck.
Yes, you're correct, Eric. So basically, there were two different developers. This one is the one that the school board has signed a sales agreement with, that is probably still in effect or has been extended.
It's been extended.
It has been extended. So basically it's in effect, and really nothing else can happen since the school board extended this. So this is the only thing that's on the table presently, and but there is a contingency for the borough to revert. And until we revert, this development will not move forward.
That's right.
So basically, yes, there was another one, and there was somewhat of a bidding war, but this is the one that's on the table, that there is a signed effective sales agreement.
Thank you, Coletta. All right. Colton, back to, I think there's some more comments out there.
Yes, so Greg Wozniak again said, he had said, to Miss Perry's point, should not Crafton, Carnegie, and Roslyn Farms all be trying to help this goal, not just Crafton? I would say yes. I think that's a tough question to answer, at least at this point for this current presentation.
I think it comes down to what properties are available for them to sell. And this was deemed underutilized, and it happens to fall in Crafton. So if this property had fallen in Carnegie would be having this conversation.
You could certainly make a case that Carnegie already have a Get-Go, and well, Get-Go doesn't have a place in Roslyn Farms. There's no possible place to locate that one. So, but again, that's not our domain. Great point, Greg. You want to go to Mary's comment, Colton?
Yes, Mary said, and I believe she might have actually said this in person as well, a walking track around the parcel would be awesome. People literally walk around the parking lot looking for a safe route. I would definitely agree with that. I can say that I also have done that as well. My wife and I come down there to walk around the parking lot and utilize it for other things that we need a flat surface for as well.
I'll take Rich's comment. We'll pass that along. He made a comment about riding a bicycle in Crafton as being unsafe. We'll we'll pass that along. Thank you for your comment, Rich.
Phyllis Barber has said City of Pittsburgh Bike Plus plan and attached a link. It contains proposed routes near Crafton. Okay. So it looks like
I'll address that one. Yes, because this is a passion of mine. Sorry, I don't mean to cut anyone off, but I am very passionate about the bike ped connections as well. I would very much like to see those in Crafton. We've talked about those here with the Planning Commission. They will come up again with the Parks and Rec Master Plan. That comment is referring to the fact that Pittsburgh has recently released their own updated brand new bike ped plan, and it does have some very good connections into it, including some connections that come up to Crafton. And we are aware of those. We are looking into ways to build off of that.
All right, James Mangan has a comment expanding upon what he said before, that this would be both a commercial and a park space, so similar to the Shenley Plaza that I believe that you had noted. I think he is agreeing with. So thank you very much. And we're to Phyllis's question. Colton?
Yes, Phyllis Barber had stated also street trees are important to any development and will help with stormwater retention, excuse me. And it looks like Kirsten has put that on the screen as well. And I agree, I like that idea as well. I think that the street trees are great. I think that's definitely something that should be incorporated into this development.
All right,
Or
Kirsten,
any development.
sum us up. I think we're out of questions in the open forum. You want to maybe take us back and give a summary?
Sure. I think we definitely heard a lot of different things from all of you tonight, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and ideas. We will be summarizing all of the conversations that were had and the feedback that we heard into a summary that we'll make available online and also provide to council. But this is, we are also, Planning Commission can also be reached at other times outside of these workshops. One of our final slides after this will go back and also share our regular meeting schedule, because we are advisory only. We are not a decision-making body, but we are here to represent our community and to help get all of these ideas that the community has and make sure that they're brought to council and that they're moving forward as best we can. So it is really great to hear from all of you. I'll just recap real quickly. Obviously, we're all here for all of this, and notes are all piling up on top of each other now. But we heard a lot of support for trying to keep green space. That's clearly very important to the community, and that feedback will be passed on to council, beyond, of course, those who are already here on the call hearing it. We've also heard ideas and comments about what kind of screening, what kind of lighting, what kind of buffering and landscaping needs to be considered, regardless of what ends up happening there, whether it's this or something else. We've heard a lot of concerns about what it should look like, how it should be screened, and how the light needs to be managed. And we've heard some really good ideas about addressing flooding, making sure that this site incorporates green infrastructure and sustainable design elements that will help the surrounding community and the surrounding neighborhoods and help address some of the issues that we're already having with flooding. We've heard comments about walkable connections and bikeable connections being important to consider. And I think it's safe to say that we all are aware that those are things we are promoting and working on, not only on this site, but also throughout the community. I don't want to go point by point on all of these. I don't want to keep us all longer than we have been. So does anyone else have any last comments or other highlights they'd like to?
No, if you could bring back the screen, I can bring us back to Colton to take us out. But I will say to the community that there's a lot of notes here, there's a lot of feedback here, there's a lot of stuff. The goal is to really present something back to council based off of your input tonight. It is incredibly important, and we want you to leave here tonight feeling that your voice is heard. I'll give the legal disclaimer as we head home. The Planning Commission is not a decision-making body. We're making a suggestion to the community, and we want that community to be not the 5 people on the commission, but all of our community. So your input is invaluable. We welcome you to come. We welcome you to participate. Colton, if you could maybe bring us home.
Yes. So as far as next steps go, planning commission meetings, we meet on the 4th Tuesday of every month. And you can also see what's going on with the community visioning at the borough website under the community visioning tab. 3 things to tell your neighbor about the Planning Commission. It's your community and we want to hear your voice. Upcoming workshops, you can check them out and then take the survey that is on the Crafton Borough the Crafton Borough website. And also we can be reached at the Crafton Borough website through the community visioning tab as well. And then a couple of our workshops that we have coming up. The November workshop that we have is Crafton Boulevard Streetscape. And the future workshop that we have planned so far is the Parks Master Plan.
I would also like to highlight that Parks Master Plan, as it was mentioned earlier, we did just get funding for that, and that will be led by a consultant. It will, I assume, I think we would push for this, that it will include community feedback through that consultant as well. But what we are talking about with the Planning Commission would be kind of an initial kickoff within the community. I don't know if anyone else wants to elaborate, but it would not be, this is just beginning. So there would certainly be more public feedback sought beyond that as well.
And with that, I thank everybody. Awesome participation. I think we had 20.
There's one hand raised.
Can't end without Mary. Mary, you are live. Unmute. Think you got it.
Oh, I totally apologize. I was trying to leave the meeting. I'm sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
Everybody
Thanks
else,
for joining.
evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Guys, you did an awesome job. You did an awesome job.
Thanks.
All right, well, thank you so much to everyone who joined us this evening. We'll leave the slide up for anyone who's there for another minute or two, but our presentation is about done. So unless there are any other questions, the Planning Commission will stay here for a minute or two, but I think you guys can all go. All right, well, Planning Commission, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone, and I don't know if this is the borough or not, I did a snapshot of the questions, but I don't like the way it came out. Can anyone actually get to the borough access to download the questions? Because all that stuff is recorded. Is there anyone ability to grab that?
Kirsten should be able to. She's in the borough account at the moment.
Well, it will all be saved into the borough's cloud.
The
space.
webinar.
Yeah, and I don't have access to that, but the borough certainly does. This is the borough manager, the borough's account.
Oh, okay.
It'll all be saved to the account owner's cloud space.
All right, I'm gonna go onto one of our shared documents and paste what I took out of here, just in case, if it's, you know what I mean, if it's problematic, but I think we're good. Okay.
Okay.
Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night.